Your thoughts on a possible indictment of former President Trump?
I'm trying to say completely political exercise.
I think it's disgusting. I think it's terrible for our country. It's bad for America generally.
This, I believe, is the epitomization of the weaponization of the federal government and departments against political opponents.
Yeah, it's going to blow up our country, and this is a bunch of BS.
Donald Trump hasn't even been indicted yet, but the Republican organization is already playing defense. GOP lawmakers are unsurprisingly standing steadfast behind the twice impeached former president, crying sham and political persecution, while some in the MAGA base are taking it one step further, comparing the potential indictment of Trump to Jesus Christ. One lawyer, who is representing a handful of January 6 defendants, tweeting, quote, President Trump will be arrested during Lent, a time of suffering and purification for the followers of Jesus Christ. As Christ was crucified and then rose again on the third day, so too will Donald Trump. I must have missed the part in the Bible where Jesus paid hush money to a porn star, and clearly Donald Trump isn't a black man with locks, so I don't see the Jesus comparison. Then there's Fox host Tucker Carlson, who, as we know from the Dominion court filings, has admitted to lying to his viewers and even hating Trump passionately. Well, Carlson is now apparently very concerned about the possibility of a Trump arrest, and last night made a plea of sorts to President Biden, asking him to save Donald Trump.
And if that happens, America will never be the same. You've got to hope that for the sake of the country, the Biden White House, which will be running against Trump, will put the country above partisanship and stop this. That Merrick Garland at DOJ will issue a very public statement saying that this is wrong, which it is, and therefore preserve for our grandchildren our justice system.
And remember, this is not the first time that Tucker has begged Biden for help. Remember, he went to Hunter Biden to help his son get into Georgetown. Joining me now is Michael Steele, MSNBC political analyst and former chairman of the RNC, and Stuart Stevens, senior advisor to the Lincoln Project and MSNBC contributor. Thank you, gentlemen, so much for joining us on the Readout tonight. Michael, I will start with you. I'm not shocked by any Republicans who are decided that they're going to defend Donald Trump. I'm not shocked by the hypocrisy that the same people who were screaming lock her up about Hillary Clinton for 2.5 years are now saying that Donald Trump should be found innocent. What I am curious about is this. In a time where Donald Trump has tons of legal fees, tons of major cases of varying importance hanging over his head, why wouldn't ambitious Republicans in the media and the organization be trying to eke out their own path to get away from this guy? I don't understand strategically the need to still associate yourself with someone who seems to be in so much trouble.
Well, first off, I love how you started this segment off with jokes. So I appreciate the humor that you that you put in front of us, especially that last one from Tuckums. But look, the reality of it is, where are they going to go? Dude, you put yourself in the middle of the Pacific Ocean on the good ship Lolly Trump. Where are you going? There's no one there to rescue you. You passed up every little dinghy that came by to say, y'all need to jump off. Where are you going? Of course they're going to double down, triple down. They have no place else to go. Their futures are inextricably tied to this MAGA grifter. He set it all in motion. They're getting paid. Fox News, where are they losing their advertisers? Their advertisers are like, okay, here's another check. So the game works for them. And the disruption, here's the secret. The disruption is the people. It's us. Right. It's voters. And that's the one thing about this narrative that's so upsetting, that people kind of, for them, looking at this and going, you know what, a pox on all of them. We just don't want to play. And we've seen this in election cycle after election cycle, and it'll culminate a little bit more in 2024.
Stuart, I want to ask you this. When it comes to, Michael said, look, they're all out on a dinghy, right? This is Survivor. They're stuck. Jeff Probst or whoever the host is of Survivor is saying, hey, you Republicans, you're out here, you can't get away. But there is a guy who thinks that he is the dinghy that people can cling to, and that is Ron DeSantis. Now, DeSantis just did an interview with Piers Morgan, and he says, look, he thinks he's different from Trump. When you really look at the people like the founding fathers, it's not to say that you don't ever make a mistake in your personal life, but I think what kind of character are you bringing? Stuart, is Ron DeSantis savvy enough? Is Ron DeSantis brave enough? And is Ron DeSantis have enough support to make himself that life preserver for the Republican organization? Or is he just kind of spinning his wheels right now because he's hoping that nobody notices the fact that he eats pudding with his fingers and wears funny boots?
Yeah, I thought that was a bizarre interview. I would have liked to have been in the room when they said, of all the people that we could go in front of, we want to launch an attack against Donald Trump with Piers Morgan, most noted for being a terrific advocate of gun control. It had the feel of something that wasn't well thought out, of sort of frustration. DeSantis has been going down in the polls. This is what happened to these politicians in 16 when they ran against Trump. A lot of them were people who thought a lot of themselves, who'd had some success, but didn't know how to play it at that level, and were not used to being attacked. The bottom line here is you'll know that someone is serious about beating Donald Trump if they say that Joe Biden is a legally elected president. But, this is how autocratic movements work. You have to pledge loyalty. So all of these people have bought into the big lie now. The party has said officially you can't enter a debate in the Republican Party if you don't agree, sign a pledge to support the nominee. So it really is a case where the party is where it wants to be. There is not a strong, what happens if you oppose Trump?
Right.
You're Liz Cheney. She spoke up. And everybody who voted against certification has risen. You now have Marjorie Taylor Greene, the second most powerful person in the House, and Liz Cheney's thrown out of the party.
So, Michael, you've heard me say this. I've said this repeatedly. I refer to them as a Republican organization. They're no longer a party. They are a dime store front for a terrorist movement called MAGA. And I'm very committed to that because it's true. Anytime that you are supporting a violent overthrow of this country, you no longer get the honorific of being called a functional political party in this country. But to the extent that they're still cosplaying as one, I do think it's very key that there are certain trials and investigations and legal cases that Trump is dealing with right now that could have implications for their ability to move forward. Do you think that if there is an indictment in, say, the Georgia case, right, or there's an indictment, when it has to do with something like January 6th, do you think that is a point where certain people in the Republican organization might be like, all right, look, this is getting too hot for me. All right, this is now we're in real trouble. I might have to go somewhere else or pipe down a bit. Or do you think that none of these cases will shake some of these leeches and eels off his boots?
You mean they weren't in real trouble after January 6th?
This is true.
If you weren't in real trouble after January, what happened in January 6th and the weeks thereafter, when everybody was plaintively saying to the country, oh, my God, we're done with Trump. This is too much. We've gone too far. They go to the House and Senate floor and they, beat their breasts and they pull out their rosary beads. And that wasn't enough. And so you think getting indicted in Georgia is going to suddenly they're going to go, oh, damn, I should have known better. Why didn't I leave before? No, they're not. And you're setting the narrative up. You already hear the storylines emerging about how this case, the New York case, the Stormy Daniels case is, shouldn't have gone first. And that anything after it is now going to be weakened by this case. So they're already playing the angles on this. No, they're not quitting themselves of Trump. They're just not. Let us all get over that and now deal in the real with what that means going into 2024.
Stuart, I've got just a couple seconds before I go to break. I got to ask you about this. We had a report from Hugo in the last minute talking about the fact that sources say that Trump wants to be arrested and put in handcuffs. There are legitimate concerns in the public that something like that will, exacerbate tensions and lead to more MAGA terrorists going out in the street and committing acts of violence. Do you think that him showing up I don't care if he's dressed like the Hamburger, I don't think it's going to make a difference. I don't think the jumpsuit matters. But do you think that kind of imagery or that kind of symbolism could be a danger or a rallying cry for a cult that's already pretty focused on the man?
Oh, absolutely. Look, The majority of Republicans don't believe that we live in a democracy. They don't believe that Joe Biden is a legally elected president. So what does that mean? That means we live in an occupied country. So a certain percentage of these people think not only do they have a right to do whatever it takes to restore what they consider to be democracy, but they have an obligation to. And I think it's extraordinarily dangerous.
Michael Steele and Stuart Thievens, thank you so much for being common sense, rational conservatives that we had to speak to tonight. Thank you so much.